with that being said, usually at the start of class, we go over homework. So that's what we're going to do right now, just going over homework for this class. So homework for last time, Crystal, as you might remember, was writing about like the whether or not a monarch's authority should be limited by the people, or if the right of a monarch to rule should be absolute, right? And I gave you guys this document, which Chase, of course, you don't have to know because you weren't here. And then with 8 documents, basically for you guys to read and then to write a response to, right? And then, yeah, and then the response question will just be whether or not a monarchy's authority to govern, whether or not that authority should be absolute or should be regulated / limited by the people. And I picked out 3 responses that we can kind of look at it together. Ignore these. These are just like some quick grammar corrections. So the first student, so for Chase, since you didn't read these documents, it's okay. Just try to follow along and try to, I won't really focus that much on content, more so about like how to write convincingly and write well. Okay, and I received your Gmail account. So I'll send you the reading you need for this class. And then after this first class, you let the organizer know if you want to continue. And Aiden is also here. Okay. So here, the first response that I got was, the student believes that a monarch's authority should be limited by the people. The reasons are as follows. So usually, ideally in this situation, I want a clearly defined thesis statement already in the very beginning. I don't want to kind of have to read through your answers in order to understand what you're trying to be arguing. The general rule of thumb that I have is students should just have a thesis in the beginning, right? So depending on these reasoning, we can then come up with a thesis statement. I'll show you guys how we can kind of get to that. So first, the student says, document 2 claims King Charles says, I desire freedom, but freedom consists in having a government. What he didn't mention was that even if a country is under control of a democracy, there'll still be a government existing. Also, while the king's power is limited under the control of its people, it will help the king gain control over the whole country. So I think right now the student is refuting against what King Charles has to say, right? So King Charles is saying that, you know, he wants everyone to have freedom, but in order for everyone to be truly free, there needs to be a government in place. So people can actually enjoy freedom and not have to constantly concern themselves with political rule, right? That's basically a summary of what he says. So this is in a way refuting what King Charles is saying as like a logical flaw, because there could be a government even under a democracy, right? So that's a kind of a counter argument, which I recommend putting later and not in the beginning of your article, not in the beginning of your writing, just because you don't have that much to build off of yet. Second, the document 4 presents that absolute arbitrary power or governing without settled standing laws can neither can neither of them consist towards the end of society. Sorry, this is kind of wrong. John Locke states, whenever a law is gone or is being controlled by the king, there will be tyranny, and thus people in this country will stand up because of riots, which is uneasy for the king to rule. So here, the student is pointing out kind of the logistical difficulties of ruling a country without, that is controlled by a king, a sole figure, right? So this is good. Third, the document is known to be Declaration of Independence, which states that people can, to summarize very quickly, overthrow governments once they start not reflecting the interest of the people. So the thing about right now, while I'm reading what the student is writing, is the student is doing a good job in citing the sources and summarizing what the sources are saying. However, because the student lacks a thesis or lacks a coherent thesis, the student does have a thesis, right? The king's monarchy should be limited by the people. Thesis is just your main argument. So the student is arguing, I can clearly understand that the student wants to argue that the monarch's authority should be limited by the people, right? However, because the student never explicitly stated the reason why that is the case, it becomes a little bit more of just summarizing these sources and not really building towards an argument. Ultimately, we want everything to go back to the very beginning, right? And it's a bit difficult, at least right now, because the student is just summarizing sources, like summarizing Locke, summarizing the flaws within King Charles's argument, and summarizing the Declaration of Independence. But just summarizing them isn't contributing to the argument. So instead, I'll kind of like show you guys how to do that in the bottom one. Lastly, in document 7, the aim of every political association is preservation of natural rights. This is by, I think this should be, is it Rousseau? But yeah, these are Okay, so once again, this means that if the government impedes the rights of human, they should regain their rights by abolishing the government. So this student is doing a good job in summarizing all the documents and using all the documents. However, ultimately, these documents are not building towards a cohesive argument. So how can we actually improve this? Well, if we read the very beginning, the student believes that monarch's authority should be limited by the people. And what are the reasons the student argues for doing so? Well, the only reason I can really tell is this one, which says it's difficult for a monarch to rule when they're not looking for the permission of people, because people will always be inclined to, because people have like diverging opinions, right? It'd be difficult for one to represent the interest of all, and as such, people might overthrow the government. And that's one reason. Another reason might be just like the possible flaw, I guess, with ruling by yourself and not taking like others' opinion into play. So that's pretty much all these sources are kind of saying, right? The student is not really making an argument as to why or why not that should be the case. So for example, one reason that could be used is to like, the student believes a monarch's authority should be limited to people to prevent tyranny from occurring and to ensure the best policy gets, let's say that the best policy or the interest of the people gets reflected, right? If that's a thesis statement, it suddenly becomes a lot easier for us to tie these arguments in. For example, we can start with this one, where absolutely arbitrary power and standing laws leads to the end of society. So like complete power basically leads to the end of government, end of society, because there will be tyranny. So according to Locke, if a king were to rule alone without regulation from the people, there will be tyranny because people's interests will not be represented, right? Similarly, the rhetoric at the time was, including in the Declaration of Independence, articulates this idea that people should, when people's interests are no longer reflected by the government, they can overthrow said government. And that's kind of a similar stance with this one, right? So we can tell, so basically with these three sources, we can kind of indicate how it's problematic for there to be just a complete monarchy without regulation by the people. And then we can then lastly talk about this one, where we kind of say that the popular argument, I guess, for absolute monarchy is that, if a king rules, no one else has to like vote or partake in political decisions, and that's in a way good because it keeps your life simpler, right? Well, the student makes a good point stating that democracy can still get people to at least be partially involved, but not have to take on the whole burden of constantly being involved, and that's good, right? So I think that structure, just by having like an argument of what you're like, just by stating clearly why you're arguing instead of saying like the reasons are follows, structures this entire essay in a much more like understandable way. Okay, second one. In this student's opinion, a monarch's rule should be absolute in order to maintain power. Although having people limit their power will be far safer since there are ways to push over governing powers if they become too oppressive, this also gives too many people chances to rebel. First of all, it is our nature to support a ruler when it benefits us and to rebel against them once they start going against our wishes. This is document 1, which is by Machiavelli, right? So this student does the opposite. So this student has a pretty coherent logical reasoning. However, the student forgot to cite these articles, which is in a way what we also want to practice. We want to practice citing and arguing a point. So this is Machiavelli. Adding on, there's also human nature to desire freedom and liberty, but laws and governments are necessary even if people don't think so. That's also document 2. Therefore, if a monarch were to stay in the position of power for a long time, they need absolute power to make the people respect and fear them because the subjects could cast them off their throne while blinded by their own foolish wishes. And I think that's also document 1 and 2 in the sense that document 1 says, Machiavelli especially says people are ungrateful, fickle, and they kind of use you as in use the ruler, right? Whenever they're beneficial, but then rebel against them when they're no longer beneficial to them. So just as like people critique a monarch, a king for being like corrupted, people themselves are also very self-interested and very corrupted, right? And it's kind of what the student is getting at here. Next is a monarch's rule is not absolute and they depend on people's opinion. However, people could be very easily manipulated by propaganda. I don't think any source explicitly mentions this. Oh yeah, Chase, you don't need to know most of this. Okay, this is just like homework review, so you don't need to know the contents that we're talking about here, right? And lastly, when we're given too much freedom and liberty and we civilize, people require laws to abide by and to follow, but some people don't realize this. This is document 7 here, where after, sorry, it's okay. Okay, it's like document 7 where it's oh no, not document 7, sorry. I remember document 8 where he kind of talks about, there's so many like people keep in France, people kept like throwing revolutions because they disagree with the ruling power. But like to rule, you also to establish a government, we also relinquish a little bit of our freedom. That's kind of what Edmund Burke is arguing. So, and this is what the student is also mentioning here. So the student does a good job generally in articulating like the student's idea and also kind of creating like a logical argument. We're just missing the citation. So if these two students kind of like exchange essays, they'll make a pretty good essay. And lastly, this is like a pretty good sample that I found. Okay. Throughout the ages, monarchs have been known to rule over their subjects with indefinite dominion. This authority is divinely ordained, as monarchs are doctrined as the minister of God on earth. As such, people should not limit a monarch's authority, and it should be absolute to ensure the well-being and prosperity of the principality. So once again, students arguing that people should there should be an absolute monarch. And The Prince by Machiavelli argues that rulers should be feared rather than loved to maintain control over their subject. This argument is well-founded, as the monarch should be able to make decisions that may not be popular with the people. To do so, the monarch must be feared and respected by the people. This is a good generalization, although I do believe there could be more citation, right? For example, why should rulers be feared rather than loved? And Machiavelli kind of delves into human nature in the sense that human nature is something that's negative, and as such, our intuition, our innate kind of inclination is something that's bad, and as such, we need a good monarch to lead us. Furthermore, King Charles the first of England believes the monarch's role was to ensure liberty and freedom of the people by protecting their rights. While this is a noble goal, it's important to remember that monarch is responsible for the well-being of the kingdom as a whole, and not just particular group or individual. So this student like summarizes it pretty well, but this feels a little bit out of place, right? Because when you're trying to make an argument, you don't want to bring up a counter argument without refuting a counter argument, right? So in this case, what if this student is arguing, let's say, a monarch's authority shouldn't be limited, but they're also saying that the monarch should be responsible for the well-being of the whole kingdom. How can we ensure that, right? Because the insurance almost is to have a limited monarchy, is to say like, okay, if we generally trust this monarch, however, if he goes off course, we should be able to kind of like pull him back, right? But the student kind of throws this in here, but then doesn't address it, which is like, it's acceptable, I guess, but it's still a bit weird because like you're poking a hole in your own argument and not really addressing it. And then third document says that monarch's authority to rule comes from God, which is absolute. A monarch who's really committed to the well-being of the subject will use authority to ensure the kingdom is prosperous. This is agreed upon by Catherine II of Russia. So good, like a pretty good summary of the sources once again. However, because the thesis statement isn't clear enough in the sense that, why shouldn't people limit monarch's authority, right? Like, I think the why is very important, not just like what we should do, but why we should do that. Because the why is not clearly defined, a lot of these sources pull me towards a certain direction. I understand what the student is trying to say, but the argument isn't really present. Okay, so that's it for homework review. It's a bit long, but hopefully that makes sense for those who like try the assignment or did the assignment. Hopefully this helps. And yeah, for more specific feedback, check Google Classroom. I'll leave the feedback there. But enough of me talking. Let's get you guys to talk a little bit more. So this week's topic, as you guys might know, is on fast fashion. It's okay if we're not aware of what that is, but we'll guide you guys through that, okay? So the first question I have for you guys to answer is, I am environmentally conscious. So like, do you agree or disagree? So if you think you're environmentally conscious, explain the things that you do that are environmentally conscious. If you don't think you're environmentally conscious, explain why you might not be environmentally conscious and how you can improve on it. If you think you're somewhere in between, give me like a reason for each, okay? So I'll give you guys like a minute or two to think about this very quickly, and then I'll call on you guys and all of us will answer this question or share our response to the group, okay? So it's 52 right now in my time. Let's say, yeah, I'll give you guys until like 54 to think about it, okay? And then afterwards, I'll call on you guys and you guys will answer. And I'll also talk about it. One, sorry, one more minute, and then get ready to share a response. Okay, so let's go by reverse alphabetical order. So Crystal, can you start us off? Do you think you're environmentally conscious or not? And go by the prompt below.
Wait, and just to clarify, environmental conscious means like how you could like
you think about the environment.
yeah. So yeah, okay. I think I'm environmentally conscious because when I like go out for a walk, when I see like trash, I would like often just like pick it up for other people in school. People, I don't know, because I've done this before. Like sometimes I pretend that like the trash like fell out of my hands, but like I actually would like
How do you pretend that? Okay. It's okay, I won't question.
I do that sometimes when I was like little, but like now I don't do it anymore because it's bad for the environment. And I also save like a lot of electricity. So when lights can be off, like they're off.
Okay. Thank you, Crystal.
Okay.
Chase, sorry, not Chance. Chase. Do you mind sharing?
I don't think I can recall of me doing anything like that.
Like anything bad or anything good?
I didn't do anything to the environment.
Didn't do anything to the environment.
I throw rubbish in my house. Like I barely even throw rubbish at school. I don't have rubbish.
Okay. So you think you produce relatively little amount of trash, and even when you do,
Yeah.
you dispose of it correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next, Aiden.
Yeah.
Yep, for the response, do you think you're environmentally conscious or do you think you're not?
Yes, I am environmentally conscious.
And what are the things you do that
I
are
think the
environmental?
environment is important because I depend on the environment to live in it.
Oh yeah, I mean like what do you do that makes you think you're environmentally conscious?
I feel environmentally conscious when I'm doing certain things, such as trying to clean up the garden,
Okay,
making more of the garden, more plants, more wildlife maybe.
okay. So you plant, so you do like you do
Usually I will
gardening
try
stuff.
to, what?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Usually I will try to throw away any of my trash in a recycling can, if it's recyclable. If not, I throw it in an area where it's indisposable.
Okay, so when it comes to once again disposing your trash, you either recycle it or you dispose of it correctly, and you also plant plants, I guess. And in that way, that's also environmentally conscious.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I depend on the environment to live.
So next, for 1 minute, very quickly, I'll just call people now. I enjoy going out shopping and buying clothes. Just a yes or no question. So, Crystal, do you like shopping and buying clothes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Chase?
Neutral.
Neutral? Okay.
Yeah.
So when do you like kind of do you go out shopping quite often or not really?
My sister and my mom does. My grandmother does, but not me.
Okay. And Aiden?
But usually like they buy the t-shirt for me and stuff.
For you. Okay, I see. So they do the shopping for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Aiden,
Yeah?
do you enjoy going out shopping or buying clothes?
No.
No. Okay. So for Crystal, then I think this is more directed towards you. What are some of your brands of clothes that you buy?
Well, I don't really like. I usually just like buy books
Windows.
and little gadgets I see. But one clothing brand I really like is Tilly's. because they have some really good deals and they're really pretty, I guess.
Okay, thank you. So here is where kind of like, so I think we all kind of generally believe we're environmentally conscious. For me, I think I am, but I also think I'm not. So like I do, like lights are off usually, right, for me. And generally, I think I'm pretty like, I throw away trash correctly as well. But there's also like, the more you learn about like how, I guess, things, how like even like subtle things that we're doing impact the environment, the more you realize you're not doing a good job. And I think that's like my main thing. I enjoy going out shopping, but I don't really buy a lot of clothes, but I still have more clothes than I need, which is like, for me, is concerning, right? And yeah, okay, so let's do this, okay? We're gonna do this practice. I'm gonna give you guys 15 minutes, okay? You're gonna go online and do like a research. So let's say today, I want you guys to do like, think about your favorite clothing brand or a clothing item, or if you can't really think of any like particular clothing item that you like, then I want you guys to think about like an object that you have that you really like, and kind of take 15 minutes to trace its origins. But think about where this thing is assembled and produced, what is used to make this thing, what are some of the materials typically sourced, who and what shaped it into its current form. Just answer the questions I've sent down here for 15 minutes, as I want this to be pretty like in depth. I want us to actually like take the time to research and look into it. And so like, for example, right, let's say today I write about like this pen here, right? Maybe like if I go online and search like where pens are, like what is used in a pen? Well, there's ink, right? There's the spring, there's the rubber handle thing here, but there's also the plastic for the pen's body itself, right? You want to kind of look at where each one of these things are sourced and how they can, you know, like where is it assembled, who makes it and stuff like that. I want you guys to take some time to look into this, okay? So try to answer I'll try to answer all of the questions I've sent here. And yeah, go online and do research. For me, I'll be researching about this clothes that I'm wearing, like this clothing that I'm wearing right now, which is a t-shirt from Uniqlo. And then I'll also be talking to you guys about like where it's produced and where it's coming from, okay? So take 15 minutes or however much time we need. If you guys finish ahead of time, also let me know. But take some time. And yeah, so let's say right now it's 01 for me. Let's set it as 16. So by the 16 of whatever time zone you guys are in, let's try to be done with this and have like a paragraph-ish to share with the class. So prepare an item, think about an item or clothing that you like and trace its origins, okay? I'll also post this in the chat for everyone to look at. Yeah. So, because I'll have to pause my share screen. So yeah. Any questions?
Mr. Chang.
Yeah.
Can like a bottle of spring water be my favorite?
Wait, can a bowl of what? Spring water?
Yeah.
Like is the water what you're writing about, or is the bowl what you're writing about? Because I feel like if you're writing about water, it's a bit difficult for you to know where the water came from, right? Maybe if you're writing like, let's say if you're writing about like a bottle of water like this one, I think you can do this just because, you know, like where's the water source, where's the plastic sourced and stuff like that, right? But if it's just like water that's coming out of your like sink, I think it's a bit difficult.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just, like try to aim
I'm
for
gonna
like
write about this water.
Which one?
This thing.
Oh yeah, no, that works. So then just if you want to write about water, like a bottle of water, yeah, that works, right? Just tell me where do you think the water is sourced, but also not just where the water comes from though. If you're writing about a bottle of water, I also want to know where the bottle itself came from, where the lid came from, and stuff like that. Okay.
Okay.
If possible, yeah, try to do research on that. Okay, and yeah, I'll be doing my research too. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, by the way. Just unmute and ask. Because if you guys send a chat message, I might not see it. So just unmute and ask. So we have 10 more minutes. So let me know if you guys need more time or if you're finishing up. Also, just send me a message. How's our progress so far? We doing good? Any questions? Okay, glad to hear no questions. Just a heads up, we'll probably spend around 7 more minutes on this. So about half the time has passed. And yeah, be prepared to share with the class what you found after this, okay? 5 more minutes, and then yeah.
How long more do we still have left?
We have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Do you guys need more time, or are we doing fine? Oh, Chase, are you done?
Not yet.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
Wait, and this
5 more.
is just supposed to be like a speech, right? Like you don't have to
No, it doesn't
write
have to be a
anything.
speech. Like, yeah, like have some like research down, right? And then just like tell us what you found.
Okay.
I also prepared mine here. Two more minutes. So have it around ready. Okay, so it's time now. Let's say, Crystal, can you start us off?
Okay, sure. So the clothing item I chose was a beanie from Tilly's. And the first question, where is it assembled? It is probably assembled at like a factory and somewhere where there where there are like low labor costs, like China and Vietnam. These materials are made out of wool, acrylic, cotton, or like a blend of fibers. Because like Tilly's, they have like, I don't know, a lot of different types of beanies. And like they are probably like knitted or like spun because it looks like someone like knitted them, but there are also ones that are just like two pieces of fabric, so they probably sewed it together. And once everything is produced, they are shipped to different stores around all around the world. So it's not just the US, it can also like be in China or something. And yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. Chase, can you go next?
I'm introducing Nongfu spring water. So the company was established in 1996, 26 September in Hangzhou, China. And the source of their spring water is from a 170-meter depth from the loose rock stratum in Manus Riverbed in Zhuangge inland area. The reason why Nongfu spring water is so popular in China is that its unparalleled water quality. It boasts its extraction rights at the country's most pristine sources and constantly innovates its packaging and messaging. Also, one of the other reasons why the bottled water is so popular is because it's portable and readily available for purchases.
For Chase, quick question though. So you mentioned how, for example, it's like popular in terms of its quality of water, right? Did your research tell you anything about, how the company purifies the water or cleans the water?
No, I searched, but they no.
Okay. Okay, continue. Sorry, I just wanted to ask that question.
Also, another reason why Nongfu spring water decided to use spring water is because it's very hydrating and beneficial ingredient to our skin.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Chase. Lastly, Aiden.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have your object origin practice ready?
What?
Do you have like this prompt that I have on the screen ready? Okay, you can start saying it.
So about this one, I don't really have a favorite clothing or branded clothing item because I haven't chosen one yet. Most companies of this favor type often consume a lot less than larger companies of different brands because they have relatively low budgets. Even one with larger budgets, they usually use cheaper offers for customers to gain the most revenue. So they use cheap polymers.
Is there any particular thing that you're talking, brand or clothing you're talking about, or is it just in general?
Just clothing.
Okay.
Relatively clothing gear, clothing types. There are different types of polymers, special plastics, usually made for suits or for different types of clothes. There's wool, the traditional wool, usually in China, where there's a lot of free labor. Usually, if you want to get such raw materials, you're gonna have to ship them elsewhere, which usually takes more money. What this means that you want to produce it at your own state. You want to produce it near yourself. And that's why many companies only have local stores. That's why you don't see so many international clothing companies, because it's just too expensive for them to do that. Instead, you have these local ones, like maybe say Vaughn's. I think it's a supermarket. It exists mostly around the Americas and not anywhere else.
Okay. Anything else? So, okay. So regarding your comment, I mostly agree with it. There is one point of disagreement though, which is actually for clothing brands, they tend to outsource a lot of their raw materials and their labor because it is cheaper abroad, right? So I'll go into that as I talk about my clothing, okay? So, the t-shirt I'm wearing is the t-shirt that you see on your screen. It's just a different color. But this is like, Uniqlo's like very popular Airism t-shirt, right? And it uses like what Aiden said, ultra thin polyester fibers, which you can think of it as kind of like not really wool and not really cotton. It's like wool and cotton-ish material mixed with a lot of plastic. So what's actually interesting about most of the clothes that we wear, it's that it's not just pure wool, silk, or cotton. A lot of them actually has what we call polyester inside. So that's why when you see clothing that are, for example, labeled as, complete wool or complete cotton, they're pretty expensive because these polyester blends are very, very cheap. It's kind of like, think about like plastic in your clothes. And yeah, Uniqlo products generally are manufactured in multiple usually Southeast Asian countries. So Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Indonesia, but also there are also a lot of manufacturing plants in China as well. And Uniqlo owes a significant amount of severance pay to Indonesian garment workers, amounting to 5.5 million. This is an additional fact that I found. So how my clothes actually came to be would be in East Asian countries like Taiwan, Korea, and Japan. They develop these ultra-thin polyester fibers, and they import these materials to these large sweatshops, such manufacturing places in China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Indonesia. And then workers there then make the clothes into what it is. And then the factory takes the clothes and ship it internationally, right? So this is the point of disagreement that I have with Aiden's statement, which Aiden says it's easier for companies to, be close to their source when they're making their clothing. Actually, it is not, just because, especially with the brands I'm talking about, which is like Uniqlo, H&M, Zara, these type of brands, it's actually much cheaper for them to get cheap labor, because the hardest part about making clothes is like who actually makes the clothes, right? Typically in especially Southeast Asian countries, the labor laws are not as defined and are not as, well enforced. And as such, it's these big companies outsource their labor to Southeast Asia and to China to pay these workers extremely low wages, and for them to in turn kind of like get the products in for very cheap. So for example, the fact that so you have to think about it in this way, right? Which is my t-shirt, or this t-shirt here, costs $15 to buy on retail. And somehow it has to, you had to have the polyester ready, and you also have to have the people who are making these clothes, all of that, and also like the traveling fee, like bring them from Asia all the way to the United States, right? All of this amounts to less than $15. In fact, I think the raw price is around like $1. It only takes around like $1 or $2 to produce a clothes like this, and they sell it for 15. So the whole process is very, very cheap, and it's very, very outsourcing. Like a lot of outsourcing methods are used. Outsourcing just means like if I'm selling it in the United States, I may get it produced, let's say in Vietnam, right? So the outsourcing is kind of what I want to focus on as a topic of today, which is fast fashion, right? So to kind of understand, to kind of think about, I guess, actually before we answer this question, let's read a few articles on fast fashion so we can kind of understand what it is. So give me a second. I'll post on Google Classroom so you guys can see. And then for Chase, I'll send it to you individually. So if you guys check Google Classroom now, you'll see a doc called Advantages of Fast Fashion. And for Chase, let me send it to you really quickly. One second. Okay. Let me send Chase the other one too. Okay, so Chase, I just sent you two articles. Read the fast fashion advantages of fast fashion first, okay? Which is also displayed on my screen now.
Wait,
okay.
I didn't receive it.
You should receive it now. I just sent it. Did you receive it?
No.
What about, because I just sent it a minute ago.
Okay.
If you still
Let me
don't see
check.
it, let me know. Yeah, check again. If you still don't see it, then no, you can read it from my screen as well. Do you see it, Chase?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll give you guys, I think, 5 minutes, or probably less, but let's say 5 minutes to quickly read over this. So by the 32nd of whatever time zone you guys are in, please have this ready. And if you finish reading ahead of time, just message me so I know you guys are finished reading. Okay. This kind of introduces you to what the topic of fast fashion is and why it's so prevalent in today's society. Okay, yeah, and once again, if you guys are done reading, send me a message in the chat so I know you guys are done. And if we all finish before time, then it's good. We can just move on.
Can I go toilet?
Yeah, go ahead. You guys have like 2 more minutes left. Yeah, just let me know if we're finished. One more minute. Are we around finished? Okay, so are we done, guys? Or do we need more time?
Can I just have like 2 more minutes?
Yeah, no worries. Take your time. Okay, so 34. Okay, so okay, hopefully we're all done. And if we're not completely done, we at least got the gist of what the article is talking about. So Aiden, can you summarize very quickly what you think, what the article is talking about?
The article is trying to talk about all these economic viewpoints of all these different things, especially talking about fast fashion. It's explaining the nature of its environment that fast fashion is currently working in. Like for instance, instant gratification.
Mhm.
In a world that values instant gratification, fast fashion perfectly fits the bill. People want things immediately, and other companies that have such items that people want so much, they can exploit it so that they can get it instantly as well. They can have this faster free-flowing economic system, which allows for more revenue. It talks about all the exploitations and all these trends, all these types of algorithms that they usually have to follow in order to be successful.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Aiden. So yeah, this article kind of talks about just the advantages of fast fashion, and as Aiden mentioned, the different environment that is present in the status quo for fast fashion to become a popular thing, right? And this article specifically focuses on the benefits of fast fashion, because the later article we'll be talking about talks about the bad parts of fast fashion, right? So I say, Crystal, in your opinion, what's like the primary, which one of these like do you think is the biggest, I guess, advantage of fast fashion? If you were to just like intuition wise.
Probably thinking reduce clothing waste.
Reduce clothing waste. Okay, thank you. So yeah, reducing clothing waste, as in, you know, a lot there is like, I guess, upcycling when it comes to having clothes, you know, that actually could, you know, be a potentially good thing. Another thing that I would like to bring attention to would just be the economic impact of fast fashion, right? So I'd say, Crystal, since you're more where we're shopping with clothes and clothing brands in general, what kind of clothing brand do you think fits under the flag, I guess, of fast fashion?
I'm not so sure, to be honest, because
no worries.
I don't shop that much. My friends shop clothes way more than I do. When I like go to like the shopping mall, I'll just like eat
Look at
most
it.
of the time. So
Eat and eat, yes.
yeah.
Okay. So actually, a lot of brands that we even just heard of and know belong in this fast fashion brand circle. So when we're referring to the fast fashion industry, we're talking about things such as, H&M, Uniqlo, and Zara, all these big clothing brands that we've probably heard about somewhat. They all belong to fast fashion. I did a quick search on Tilly's, and Tilly's technically belongs in fast fashion, although they're a bit better than the rest, in the sense that they actually like try to be a little bit more environmentally conscious and try to kind of like source their material and labor in a more like genuine / not exploitative manner. But still, they still technically belong under the fast fashion industry and brand just because of its history. Okay. So with that done, I have another reading for you guys. So this one talks about kind of the potential advantages. Now we want to explore the disadvantages. So or just the negatives, I guess. I just posted it. It's called Fast Fashion Negatives on Google Classroom. And for Chase, it's available in your email. So just check. It's just this one. It's this one over here. Okay. And this one, when it comes to the fast fashion industry, you just read about why it's positive. This one just talks about why it's, of course, negative, right? So take, let's say, 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes to read this. So by 44 of whatever time zone you guys are in, please try to be finished with this and have a response ready. Just very quickly, you guys have around 4 more minutes left, okay? Let me know if you guys need more time. 2 more minutes left. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, do we need more time or are we about finished? Okay, I'm guessing that we're done then. So, Chase, can you quickly summarize what you think are the main points of this article? Chase, are you here?
Yes.
Can you summarize very quickly what you think like the main points of this article are, or do you need more time reading it still?
I'm like telling you what's fast fashion.
Sorry?
It's like telling you what is fast fashion.
Yeah.
Fast fashion.
And specifically, what about fast fashion?
Like why was the fast fashion a thing?
Yeah, what is fast fashion? But in the bottom, what does it also talk about? You know, highlighted in bold.
Disadvantages of fast fashion.
Yeah, and like what are some reasonings that the article said?
Like it will like pollute the planet.
Yeah, so there are a few disadvantages that I mentioned. So first is, of course, polluting the planet, right? Because fast fashion industries, you know, require you to actually plant the things you need to make these clothes. So that pollutes the planet. But secondly, there's also, you know, problems of exploiting workers, harming animals, and coercing consumers into, you know, this consumerist buying and selling, sorry, buying and throwing away culture. So yeah, this is kind of just what some of the points the article talked about. Thank you, Chase. Aiden, of these examples mentioned here, which one do you think is the highest like priority / like the most dangerous, I guess, in your opinion?
The most dangerous?
Yeah, for the negatives of fast fashion.
What?
For the negatives of like, for the detriments, I guess, of fast fashion, which one of these points that the article mentioned do you think is the biggest problem?
Polluting our planet. I mean, it technically also does harm animals at the same time. Polluting our planet, that is a very big concern already. We do not want to make it worse. Polluting our planet indirectly affects our animals, which we largely rely on some of our clothing brands, which if you're only talking about a money sense, then that means less money, less economical worth. Secondly, it's just bad for our planet because rising sea levels is going to make everything worse.
Okay, thank you. And Crystal, what about you? Which one of these kind of topics do you think is the most detrimental?
I'm thinking harming animals.
Harming animals, okay.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Well, one of the more personal reasons might be because I love animals, but I feel like they are like already impacted through like pollution and stuff. So they're really like I feel like everything can harm animals, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So from the two pieces we read so far, and from just kind of what we know about fast fashion right now, at least like the view that you guys would have is that it is kind of just this like really cheap clothing. Basically, you can think about it like that, right? Like cheap clothing is fast fashion. And there are big brands promoting said cheap clothing, such as, most notably H&M, Uniqlo, Zara, and stuff like that. And these kind of brands, they are good and bad, right? The fast fashion industry itself is worth $60 billion internationally, and that's a lot of money. Like that's a lot of jobs that would have otherwise not existing, and that's also a lot of like money in general that the industry is generating. However, at the same time, there are also big negatives of fast fashion, right? For example, the polyester that I talked about, which is kind of this plasticky material used to make a lot of the clothes that we actually buy. They can cause, whenever you wash it, it kind of causes like microplastics, if you guys know what that is, which are just like very, very small plastic, right? Like particles to go into our rivers and go into our ocean streams, which then animals can ingest. And then we in turn we eat these animals too, right? Like fish, for example. We also start ingesting these microplastics, which of course is bad for the environment and bad for us. There are also problems with worker exploitation. The reason why these clothes could be sold at like $10, even though you ship it from like Vietnam or Indonesia, right? The reason why it's so cheap is because these workers are not making a lot of money. If you guys were to guess, how much do you think these workers are making? I guess for a day, how much money do they earn? Any ideas? Any guesses? Chase, what do you think? So we talked about exploiting workers, right? There are people who work for extremely low wages. So like how much do you think these like low wages, I guess, entail?
I don't know.
If you were to guess, it's okay. It's a guess, right? So
wait, like how much they're paid?
Yeah, how much they're paid for a day of working.
I think $5.
$5 for a day? $5 US?
Yeah.
Okay. Crystal, what about you? What was like your guess?
I'm thinking like more like 5 hours like per hour maybe.
Wait, sorry? More like 5 hours.
$5 per hour,
Per hour?
maybe.
Okay. So in New York, I think right now the minimum wage is, I actually have no idea because I'm in New York, but let's see. Minimum wage in New York is $16 per hour, okay? So we're earning $16 per hour. That's the lowest amount they can pay you, right, in New York. So for these, especially in like places like Vietnam, Indonesia, and Indonesia, the wages are around $3 for an entire day, and they work up to 12 hours a day. So it's actually really messed up how little they're paying these workers. Although there is problems like purchasing power parity, right? For example, buying food in New York is a lot more expensive than buying food in Indonesia. $3 for an entire day is still not a livable wage for many of these people, right? So when it talks about low wages, that's the magnitude we're talking about, right? It's like really, it's not just like low wages, like, oh, I'm getting not paid not a lot. It's like wages to the point where it's like you're living off of each paycheck, right? You cannot save money, and you have no time to do anything else, because if you stop working at this job for 12 hours a day, then you get fired. Right? So there's a problem with so exploiting workers is also a tremendously big problem. Another thing that I want to talk about is the working conditions these workers are living in. As you guys read in the beginning, of course, there is this, like in 2013, there was this very famous like collapsing of these manufacturing complex. And more notably, there's also like these like problems with safety regulations in these factories that these people are working in. For example, in many factories in Indonesia, Vietnam, and China, there are no fire escapes. So then it becomes a very big problem when fire occurs, because then lives are at risk. So not only are they making very little wages, they're also putting their life in a way in risk, right? At risk for their job. For hurting animals, I think hurting animals and all of these problems though, for including, the impact that fast fashion has on our planet, exploiting workers and harming animals, all of these are a problem of consumerism though. So what is actually consumerism? Consumerism, I think this is how you spell it. I'll send it in the consumerism. Maybe with two M's, I'm not sure. But what this word basically just means is that it's the idea that people buy things. Very simply, fundamentally, it's just like we buy things, right? But over consumerism, like too much consumerism is also a bad thing. So I think this is also one thing that we can think about, right? I don't think that pertains to you guys. I know for another class that I taught, it really resonated with them a lot, because they all really like to buy clothes. But for you guys, I think you guys are relatively fine. But normally what this is fast fashion impacts consumers themselves, right? So there's this throwaway kind of culture. So for example, I don't know if this ever occurred to you guys. It never occurred to me, but I heard people talk about, for example, like wearing Nike Air Forces. I don't know if that's relevant to you guys right now, but a lot of people like to wear Nike shoes because they're like, oh, it's Nike, the white shoes, the Air Forces are very popular, right? And as such, people will buy these shoes, but you're not like a caterpillar. You don't have like a lot of legs. You only have a pair of feet, so you only can wear a shoe at a time. So what happens is that if you buy these new shoes, then you throw away your old ones, right? Or you don't wear your old ones, and then eventually you throw it away. But then when a new pair of shoes comes out, you're like, oh, I want to get the newest pair of Air Forces. So you throw away your old one and you buy the new one, right? And that's kind of like the problem with consumerism that we're talking about, is you're overbuying and underusing, right? And that's the problem with a lot of these fast fashion brands as well. Let's say today H&M comes out with a new clothing that is very cheap, right? It's like $10 for a t-shirt, $5 for a t-shirt. You tell yourself like, oh, it's too good, like it's too good of a deal, I need to buy it. So you buy it and you wear maybe once or twice, or maybe you actually wear a lot, but the more you wear it, the less you wear the clothes that you already had anyway. So no matter what, you're overindulging in things that you don't necessarily need, right? And that's the problem with the fast fashion industry, is it promotes this like consumerism, but also promotes us overbuying things and underusing the things that we're buying. And as such, it ends up being very inefficient, basically. It's a very inefficient use of resources, right? Like, and I think that's what we're gonna talk about a lot more about next class, is the specific statistics. So this class, I gave you guys the broad picture, right, of like what fast fashion is and how it looks like, but we don't really know the particular numbers. We have a few minutes left, so maybe we can get into the numbers, but I think I want to save that for next class just because it's a little bit more interesting. Okay, so with the few minutes that we have left, I want to show you guys kind of why exactly fast fashion remains a problem. So let me show you guys this video very quickly. So Levi's, which is like a pretty popular jeans brand, they also had a commercial out like this, and this is the commercial they had. I don't know why there's no sound. Is there sound for you guys? I don't know if there's sound. Okay, hopefully there is sound, but if there isn't sound, oh, there isn't sound. Okay, my bad. Let me restart it.
Global clothing consumption has doubled in the last 15 years. We can change that.
When we make better, we can buy better. And when we buy better, we can wear longer.
We wear longer, we can buy less.
When we buy less, we can waste less.
And when we waste less, we can change for good.
Okay, so this is kind of a commercial that Levi's, which is a clothing brand, launched not too long ago. I don't know how many years ago this was, but basically it's buy better, wear longer, right? So the idea is you should buy their brand because their brand is more better quality, and as such the clothes last longer, you can throw them away less. However, why is this such a rare practice? Why do you guys think? Right? Like why is this, like, the logic is there, right? Like it's like if you buy better things, you get what you pay for, right? So why is this such a rare practice, and why don't like most clothing brands do this? Aiden, do you have an idea? Or guesses?
Levi's commercial.
Or like, no, not just a commercial, but like, yeah. But actually, yeah, in regards to Levi's commercial, why is it so rare, I guess, among like brands to promote the idea of, you know, buy better, wear longer?
It's so rare because they would often make so much less sales, meaning less money, meaning less economy for a company itself.
Yeah, exactly. That was the answer I was looking for. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Aiden. So exactly, it's very counterintuitive, right? Like let's say today I'm a business, I'm trying to sell my pair of jeans. If I make the best pair of jeans you ever need and I sell it to you, then you only realistically buy one pair of jeans from me, right? Or you buy 7, you wear every day, you buy 7 pairs. But then I'll start getting sales. And as such, it's a very fast fashion itself is a very counterintuitive thing. It's really difficult to fix just because if we want to earn money, you have to keep buying from me, right? Because, you know, clothes is kind of like you kind of buy more clothes. So I need you to continue buying things for me to earn money. But then if I want to make good quality things, that also discourages you from buying it from me again, right? Instead, what fast fashion industries try to do is they make not bad quality clothes. They certainly make decent quality clothing, but they keep coming up with new clothing to attract you to buy it. So even though Levi's, for example, has this model of, you know, buy better, wear longer, they still come up with new designs that will make you want to buy their brand again and again, right?
Hopefully it is better than the last.
Hopefully it is better. Yes, exactly. Hopefully it's better than the last, but that's not always the case. So I think that's it for the lesson for today. For homework, I'll send you guys the prompt, but the homework prompt is basically come up with methods, very specific methods, for example, that can combat fast fashion, and, you know, yeah, come up with methods that can combat fast fashion / solutions to fast fashion that you can think about, and then also I'll tell you guys to remember to include the link of the sources that you guys are citing. So I do want you guys to cite sources, okay? And for people who submitted the homework, please check Google Classroom for specific comments on it. But with that being said, this is the first class we have on fast fashion. Next week, we'll have another class on this topic, and we'll kind of like round it out there. And next week will be a lot more statistic-based. This week is just kind of an introductory course. So if you guys have any idea or any questions, feel free to email me or ask me. But if not, then you guys are dismissed, and I'll see you guys next week. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.